This episode of the 12 Monkeys podcast is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Welcome to the 12 Monkeys podcast, a Southgate Media Group production, where we talk all about Sci-Fi Channel's reimagining of the classic science fiction film originally produced by Terry Gilliam and now produced for television by Terry Matalas. I'm your host, Blaire and Kyle, executive producer of Professional Geek Podcast, and with me today is Kyle Trembley, the editor-in-chief at TVBinges.com. You can find us on Twitter at Blaire Loves TV and at Kyle Loves TV. And you can follow this podcast's Twitter handle at 12 Monkeys Pod. Hi, Kyle. How you doing today?
Oh, Blaire, we are getting down to it now.
It's the penultimate. It's so close.
It's happening. It is all happening. Stuff is going on in the 12 Monkeys universe.
Yes, we lost a week to the 4th of July, but they made up for it and then some with Season 2, Episode 12, Blood Washed Away, which was written by Sean Tretta.
Yeah, I'm upset that this didn't air last week retroactively, just because I feel like, I mean, a week isn't that big in the grand scheme of things, but the show has a lot of momentum right now, and it's just a situation that sucks that July 4th fell on a Monday, and that it had to be bumped back a week, because, I just think, like, right now, the show's really, like, in full-on sprint to the finish line mode.
But during that week, we found out that, drumroll please,
yes,
12 Monkeys was renewed for a third season!
Hey! Yes! The best news of all, the finish line that they are sprinting towards is a season finish line and not a series finish line. And that we're going to get a third season, at least, of our beloved podcast subject.
Yes.
So that is tremendous news. We've been campaigning for it on this podcast for a while, and it's great to see.
Yes, and hopefully they get all 4 seasons that Terry Matalas has said that they need to tell the story. I don't know about you, but I am so pumped to talk about Blood Washed Away, because it was a roller coaster.
Yeah, this was a doozy. This was worth the wait.
You know what? I was able to put down Pokemon Go for a whole hour to tweet, and now another 30 to 45 minutes to speak with you, and it's just that exciting.
I wonder what kind of Pokemon you could catch in the Red Forest.
Oh, don't make me go there.
I feel like if the witness had really, like, thought this through, he could have just, like, convinced the world that the Red Forest was the best thing by saying that he put Pokemon lures in it, and that there were special Pokemon available.
Oh no.
By the way, when Pokemon, like, a month from now is completely, like, not a thing, this podcast is gonna age great.
Yeah, everybody's gonna know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be like, what are you silly people talking about?
Okay, so at the end of the last episode, Cassie and Cole, go back in time to 1957 with the knowledge that they may be stuck there permanently, while Team Ramsey and friends go off to try to find the witness. And boy, did both of those things happen so much.
Yeah, no, we delivered on there was no delay in terms of where we left off was our two teams were setting off on their separate missions, and that's what we got. Right off the bat. And
it is possible that one, if not both, of our predictions from last week came true. I don't want to bury the lead.
Well, first of all, we should say both missions failed, which was not the prediction that we agreed upon. We thought Cassie and Cole were going to succeed, but nope, failure. And as we'll talk about later, Ramsey and co failed predictably, as we said they would. But yeah, our individual predictions may be coming true, or mine did in this episode, which is that Ramsey would die. His mission ended in failure. And yours is very much looking like it will, which is that Cole is the witness.
Yes, which would make me so happy if I called that, because that to me seemed like I was grasping for straws when I made that
No,
call.
I honestly, I thought you just improvised it and didn't really think it through. But no, it is. We now have a lot of evidence pointing towards Cole being the witness.
Yes. As Cole and Cassie go on their adventure in 1957 to try to find the final primary, ultimately failing to stop it literally by 20 seconds.
Yeah. It was one of those classic, like, where like you have someone like at gunpoint moves, but then like you don't do anything and they do the thing that you didn't want them to do. It was like one of those classic situations.
It was exactly that. Which, I thought it was one of those episodes where the thing that we've talked about with 12 Monkeys is that they do really excel at sort of just putting us in the time period and making us believe that we're there. And I think more than any other time period we've ever been in, I believed in 1957. Mm-hmm. Like, they really went out of their way to, establish different social norms, the way that Cassie in particular was treated throughout time, the way that Cole is treated, the work that he does, which is work that you hardly see nowadays. It was just very, I bought it, I thought that they did a really excellent job. But the thing that I was the most excited about, and I don't know that I saw as many people tweeting about it, was kind of how brilliant it is that the fact that they couldn't find the final primary was that it was a person of color and they were only looking in white spaces. Oh,
that's a really astute observation, and I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right. And that is... Now, why... I must have missed this, but why did they narrow it down to that one factory? Like, did they have a news clipping or something?
I believe they knew where. Yeah, because they knew where the explosion happened.
Okay, so they knew. Yeah. So they knew it happened there. Yes. They immediately assumed it was like a worker or something along those lines. They had what, 11 months or so? Was it established?
Yeah, they had almost an entire.
They had almost a year to put together this investigation. I feel like they didn't do a great job. Like, they really left it to the last minute and didn't do like a really killer job investigating, and it didn't end up well.
No, but I think that that's sort of the point, is that like they did narrow it down to a person or two that they thought it might be. The person who he originally thought that it was the one he said, "Oh, I think this guy thinks I fancy him." It actually was the messenger, actually.
Right.
Which was funny.
Leave it to Cole and his a brilliant intuition to have befriended a messenger and then cleared him of all suspicion.
Yes.
Way to go.
But so they thought it was going to not only just be somebody within the factory who worked there, but I don't think that they went beyond to look into their families or anything like that, because they were so hyper focused on people coming in and out of this factory, which is sort of amazing because I think we've seen them solve more difficult mysteries in the past. But I suppose it is a messenger, and the messenger is definitely going to be keeping the primary in a safe place where she can't be found.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly a unique situation with the relationship that was revealed between the messenger and the primary. So I think they weren't prepared to be looking for that. I mean, as it became clear, Cole and Cassie didn't really know what they were looking for. They were looking for, and I quote, twitchiness was their number one signaler. So,
Yes. So the paradox does happen, and Cassie gets put into a coma for like a year or something.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Yeah, and wakes up, becomes a doctor. Oh my God, that was probably a nurse. That's right. My favorite thing was when he's like, "There's no such thing as Lyme disease, little lady."
Yeah. Right. Cassie, one of the first times in the show that we've seen someone actually effectively use future knowledge in the past. For a show about time travel, there is shockingly little use of knowledge of the future. So that was one of the only times we've ever seen one of our characters actually apply stuff that we've learned in the last few decades.
Yes. But then, her finding Morrison later.
Morrison rides one last time.
Forever and always.
If Cole is the witness, I hope he goes by Morrison. I hope the witness is just named Morrison.
I feel like Cassie would have figured that out. I mean, I guess they don't know anything about the witness.
Yeah, they don't know his name. They just call him the witness.
They just call him the witness.
They haven't seen his business card.
But so Cassie finds Morrison in his little townhome, and lo and behold, it's the one we've been seeing since season 1. I mean, what a payoff.
Wow. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of work put into that moment of sort of weird flashbacks to the kind of 12 Monkeys flashbacks where we haven't actually seen the material yet, but it's a flashback because of time. And that was that image of the house was the first time I was like, oh, Blaire's right. Oh.
I was so excited.
Yeah.
I mean, the place that we're at, where we ended by the episode, I'm not entirely sure that it is Cole, but
yeah, there could still be a twist.
There could still be a twist. I mean, there's still Jones's husband who's left up in the air, who definitely got in contact with somebody to help create an alternate time machine, because obviously if Jones has the only time machine, the witness can't exist. Right. It's a really big stretch to believe that Cole would have the brain to help create the time machine, but his love for Cassie might, overcome all of that.
Right.
Cassie and Cole shippers everywhere.
We had the casserole has come together. It is out of the oven. It is ready to go.
Yes. That was quite the scene. Watching Cassie and Cole make love while their friends die horribly.
Interspliced with 3/4 of the main cast being brutally slaughtered. Which was absolutely not an accident, and I think maybe more than anything points to Cole being the witness, because there was clearly an implication that event, Cole and Cassie getting together, led to what happened, or had played a role in that. That this was like the explanation, the long-term explanation for why all that death happened.
Yes, a sort of butterfly effect, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is the beginning of that, because we also saw a butterfly effect with the paradox happening, and suddenly the Titan appearing.
Yes,
where it was not previously.
Which means that if they had stopped the paradox, then Titan may never have happened.
Yes, right. And so there's some weird causality with that happening now, but yeah, that there was definitely some major hints being laid down about Cole and Cassie getting together and the disastrous effect that would have on the future.
Definitely. Although I don't know, I have like a Buffy thing I want to drop. So there's a thing that happened in Buffy where two characters, a vampire becomes a human temporarily, but then in order to make everything right, he has to turn back time, with him being the only one with the knowledge that he'd been a human and that he'd had all of this love in his life when he was human temporarily. And I have the feeling that we're going to kind of, if Cole's not the witness, that we're going to go down that path where he's going to find a way to reverse time, but Cassie won't remember that they got together.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like a memory loss type situation.
Yeah, but at least it won't be like amnesia, which is one of those everyone's favorite cliches. But yeah, it would be much more in depth.
A Grimm trope that we don't want.
Oh, Grimm.
One of the reasons we had to stop doing Grimm.
Yeah.
Because of all of the amnesia.
So much amnesia happening on Grimm.
But yeah, so I think that we are pushing in the right direction for Cole to be the witness, which makes me just very happy. I love calling things before they happen.
Yes, I mean, the only thing that is not pointing to it is how obvious it was telegraphed in this episode. That the fact
they
that
don't telegraph stuff a lot.
No, and the 12 Monkeys, I think, delights in sort of confounding its audience and then sort of explaining things and walking that balance line where the audience is understanding and the show's understanding kind of collapses and then expands like a spring. You know, sometimes sometimes the show really lets us in, and then other times we feel like we're lost. And that's sort of the flow of how 12 Monkeys works. It seems very weird to me if Cole is the witness that the final scene of this episode was not the reveal of him as the witness. It seems like everything in this episode, all those scenes were leading up to Cole removing the mask, and it like a close up on his face, and then the episode would end. Like that's where I thought for sure this was going once it sort of started pointing in that direction. The fact that it didn't go that way makes me think that there might be another twist ahead.
Yes, I definitely 100% agree with that. I also have a hard time believing that if Cole were the witness, but then again, obviously we don't know what would lead him to become the witness fully, but if he were the witness, that he would so coldly murder all of those people. But then again, you know, whatever gets him to that point with himself, with his mentality where he wants to destroy everything, maybe there is a world, but it's just very hard to sort of connect with that sort of brutality. And it's also really hard to connect with that brutality if Sam is the witness, which you've been calling for a while.
Yes. I think if either Cole or Sam are the witness, and there's another shoe to drop in terms of the motivations. I think you're onto something, that if it's Cole, then it's going to involve Cassie. There's going to be some Cassie event that drives Cole to this, to do what he's doing as the witness. And if it's Sam, then we're going to get some kind of explanation as to that. I don't think, I mean, most likely the scenario is that it's Cole, but I don't think that we would find out it's Cole without, maybe that's why they delayed the reveal, if it is Cole, that stuff is going to happen that explains why he would slaughter all these people that he presumably knows. So exactly. And it would have to do something with Cassie. It would have to do with her. I don't think that they would get rid of, like, I don't think that they would flat out murder Cassie. No.
I don't think, they wouldn't drop her from the show. Right. The same that I don't believe that all the characters that have died in the last 2 episodes are going to remain dead. Because as, you know, what was it? Hannah, Deacon, and Ramsey. But I don't know, did Jennifer get her throat sliced too, or was it just those 3 who got their throats sliced?
I didn't see Jennifer get her throat sliced. Didn't Jennifer leave? She didn't go with them, right?
Oh.
Remember?
I thought
I think the daughters, what's her name? Jones's daughter.
Hannah
accompanied them, but I think she was the only one of the daughters that accompanied them.
Right, because they killed Whitley, Ramsey, Deacon, and Hannah.
Yes, I think those were the principals here, and Jennifer took the daughters and turned around and went back.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, I guess I could kind of believe in a show where we just had Jennifer and her daughters, but they've done a lot of work to build up this cast and these characters with the audience.
I think we lost the characters that we're going to lose. I think Ramsey and Whitley and all them, those were our big losses this season. I would not expect another like major character loss in the finale.
Do you think they're actually like dead?
Well, no one's dead on this show due to the nature of the show. So who even knows? I mean, we very well could be headed towards what I talked about last week, what I said I would be potentially excited about, which is a season that takes place in the Red Forest, whatever that would mean. You know, or something, or in a transitionary period between current world and the Red Forest. Like, this show could go in so many directions that I have no idea. But I do know that any character who dies is far from permanently dead in the world of the show, because you can always just hop back in time. And,
right. It's one of those things where, like last week, as I said on the podcast, as I tweeted multiple times, I cried a lot when Jones died. In this episode, based on what happened in the last episode, I didn't cry because, and you and I are not mourning Deacon right now, which if we really believed that Deacon were dead, this entire 30 minutes would be about Deacon.
Of course.
But that's the thing, is I think that unfortunately for the show, with their intentions of making us feel things and worry, is that we are in the state of belief that, oh, it's okay, it'll be fixed. You
That's
know,
true. And that is the risk that all shows run whenever they have a character death that turns out not to be a character death.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely, like, I think I thought the end of this episode with that the sort of slicing up of the casserole scene and the deaths of those characters was affecting, but it definitely would have been more affecting if I didn't, like, sort of shrug off that any character can return on this show, and that it's not like, I mean, maybe we've seen them for the last time, but based on the show's track record, I wouldn't expect that. And even though they're certainly not cheating by doing that, like other shows who bring back characters from the dead are often cheating. See The Walking Dead with Glenn, but it's certainly well within the world of the show for characters who had died to return. But it does, you're right, it does lessen the impact of the deaths in the first place, and the fact that we've seen basically all our main characters die at one point or another, including Cassie, is does certainly factor in. Like, you can't treat these deaths like you would on a normal show,
right? And it makes it very, especially when they kill 5 of them in 2 episodes.
Yeah,
it makes it very, very difficult to have any faith that any of that is permanent, and so it makes it hard to be emotionally invested in the supposed death of these characters.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Because I was watching it, I was like, okay, they'll be back next week.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, it's a sort of natural response now, and it's hard to. That's just sort of the world that the show is living in, and it's fine. It's not like 12 Monkeys is a show that on a week-to-week basis relies on killing off characters to have any drama. There's plenty here. It's I think a choice that the show has made, and probably a necessary one, just given the time stuff. You can't get around that, and so yeah, I mean, it's just something that the show's going to have to live with, and that it's not going to be able to gin up incredible emotion from character deaths. So that's just how it is. I
mean, hey, I cried when Michael Hogan died. That was,
of course,
love interest.
Now, when someone dies in the Red Forest, like that one, even though I guess everyone in the lab died in the Red Forest eventually, that felt permanent.
Right.
I guess in a weird way, the minor character deaths are more affecting than the major ones, because it seems so obvious that the major characters will return. But a character like that was just introduced 5-6 episodes prior, it does seem permanent in that case. It seems like the show wouldn't bother to bring him back. And so it weirdly was more affecting when he died, for me at least, than when Jones died. Because I was sure Jones was going to be back. Like, there's no way they're writing Jones off. She's too important of a character to the show for her to be written off like that. So yeah, I mean, it's a very strange situation, a very topsy-turvy emotional roller coaster.
It is, and I guess we'll be kicking ourselves, next week or the beginning of next season if those characters don't return, or if those actors get booked on different series, for not mourning them on the podcast. But it did just occur to me that those characters, some of them anyway, Jones, for instance, can be replaced by her husband character. There are ways for the story to probably continue without them living, but I have a very hard time and a lot of denial.
No, it's not going to do that. Like, it's just not. That's not denial. It's just like the realities of television is that 12 Monkeys just got renewed, probably by the skin of its teeth. It's not gonna recast 80% of the show, right, because that's how much has died in the last 2 episodes.
Right, and they certainly won't keep an audience if they have to recast it.
Well, they might. Still... I mean, certainly the dedicated fans. I mean, it would make perfect sense, but it's just not like television reality. And I'm not saying. By the way, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong or cynical that the show would bring back those characters, especially Jones and them. Like, that's not. I'm not saying that's the wrong thing. I'm just saying the reality is that they're gonna be back. Like, at least some of them. So, like, I don't know for sure if Ramsey's gonna be back or not, but some of these characters are gonna be back. It's I think a very safe conclusion.
Ramsey is like the one that I really do believe is the one that can die. Like, I don't mean that in terms of like I'll be the least sad. I really love Kirk Acevedo. I really love the performance. I really love the character. But I think in terms of storytelling, his is the only character that actually makes sense eliminating. I don't think, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, right.
I mean, for the rest of them, but there is a part of me that still believes that there's a possibility that Ramsay could be gone by the end of the next episode, permanently.
Yeah, it's entirely possible, and we know that they have one way to permanently kill someone, which is a paradox. So that's always in the back pocket. Like if someone wants to die permanently, you paradox them. And
how could they paradox any of those characters? I mean, I guess they could go back in time and grab a piece of their body and go back forward.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it work the same way as you paradox whatever they're called?
The primaries.
Yeah, primary. I'm getting lost in the terminology.
Yeah. No, that's interesting though. If they kill those 4 or 5 characters right now, they can take a piece of their body and have it ready for a paradox later, right? Like if they've technically killed Deacon in one timeline and can hold onto that bone, then in theory they could come after Deacon again with that bone.
I don't think they're going to bother paradoxing Deacon. I mean, look, he's our favorite character, but they don't need to worry about Deacon, affecting the fabric of time. But yeah, I think. I mean, above all else, what I think is this finale is going to change a lot about the show. I think this finale is set up, especially because they withheld the witness reveal, and obviously that's going to come in this finale. Like, a lot about what 12 Monkeys is and where it's going is going to be determined next week. Right. I think this episode was getting us there. But that episode, that finale, I just think we're going to know so much more next week about the direction that the show is going to go in, because I could see there are so many ways that it could go at this point, and so many varying degrees of ambition that the next season could have, in terms of being completely off the rails, or in terms of sort of resetting back to sort of season 1 12 Monkeys, where you have missions every week, and that I could make a case for the show going any of those directions. And so I really think we're kind of in the dark right now about what the future of 12 Monkeys is going to look like, and we're really just happy that the show has a future.
Yes. Yeah. No, I am ecstatic that the show has a future.
Yes.
That it gets the opportunity to try to complete its cycle or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Yes. All right. I think we're at the point that we can't really have any predictions. Am I right? As you said, there's just too much. We can
take. You already made your prediction last week, which is that Cole is the witness, and that one's still outstanding. It's still on the books, but it's the odds are looking a lot better in Vegas for that prediction than they were when you made it. So you're on pace to make a lot of money on that one. Fake money, obviously, virtual currency.
Yes.
In terms of podcast admiration.
Yes, and retweets. If only that counted as real money.
Oh, if only retweets were real money. Oh, my Bachelorette tweeting would be so profitable.
Oh man, do you have anything else you'd like to say about this episode before we close out?
It was a good episode. It was a really good episode. Did we say that?
I think we did say that.
I think we at least implied it.
I think so.
I think the 12 Monkeys is pretty awesome right now.
Yes. I want to remind our listeners that you and I do the Strain podcast.
Yes.
And that the Strain is returning shortly. I am looking up that date right now.
It's like September. It's like a little ways off, right?
August 28th.
Okay, well, basically September. Okay. End of August.
Yes.
If people think we're a little bit hard on 12 Monkeys sometimes, they should listen to the Strain podcast, because Blaire and I are both critics by trade, and we really like 12 Monkeys, and we really want to like the Strain, and that show makes it very hard for us. And yeah, so if you think we're being ever negative to 12 Monkeys, please pick any episode of the Strain podcast and listen to it. It
occurred to me that it might not be clear to our new listeners that you and I, yes, are critics by trade, and that we have been doing media professional criticism for 4 or 5 years
4 or
now.
5 years, yeah. 4 or 5 years. We would,
Yes, we've been on multiple websites and
we aren't currently
lots of
critics, but we were critics.
we were critics. Well, we currently are in terms of our podcasting, and as Kyle said, if you think that we are ever mean to 12 Monkeys, we are not mean to 12 Monkeys the way that we are mean to the strain.
Yes.
But if you want to listen to us make lots of jokes at the expense of bad vampires, you should listen to our Strain podcast.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. Look, that one's I think a little bit more lively, just because we get so worked up about some of the stuff that show does. 12 Monkeys is so good and so competent that we rarely get worked up about it.
Right. We're always struggling to talk about things that aren't just like, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, this wraps up this episode of the 12 Monkeys podcast. Before we go, I want to mention a few things. You can download and subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Libsyn. You can also hear all of our podcasts at our website, southgatemediagroup.com. Please subscribe to the show and also rate us. Check out my new podcast, Professional Geek Podcast, a show about how to be a professional and also a geek. And check out tvbinges.com to read about Kyle and Friends Write About TV. Follow the show on Twitter at 12 Monkeys Pod, and Kyle and I at Kyle Loves TV and at Blaire Loves TV. And remember, both Kyle and Blaire have an E at the end. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time, the final time for the season.